Welcome to the LMGI's Meet the Finalists series for the 13th annual LMGI Awards. I'm Sasha Alvarez Denisoff, a Los Angeles-based location professional and longtime Guild volunteer. For the past 23 years, the Location Managers Guild International has celebrated the artists and professionals who transform real places into unforgettable worlds on screen. Our annual awards recognize the extraordinary creative contributions of location managers, location scouts, and film commissions whose work helps bring stories to life. After many years of presenting these conversations live, we're trying something new. This year, we've pre-recorded our finalist interviews to give our voting members more insight into the creative process behind each nominated project. We hope hearing directly from the nominees provides a deeper understanding of the challenges, collaboration, and vision that went into finding the perfect locations for every production. You'll find timestamps in the descriptions below, allowing you to jump to a specific title or watch the interviews straight through. We quickly discovered that limiting these conversations to just 10 or 15 minutes wasn't easy. Every nominee had fascinating stories to share, and while we wish we had even more time, we hope these interviews help inform your voting and shine a broader light on the craft of location management. As a volunteer-run organization, this series would not have been possible without the dedication of our awards committee. We'd like to extend our sincere thanks to Awards Committee Chair Nancy Haker, along with subcommittee chairs Stevie Nelson, Diane Friedman, Robin McDonald, Russ Gladden, and Eric Klein, whose countless hours of reviewing, vetting, and advancing submissions to the ballot helped bring this series together. I would also like to thank our moderators, JJ Levine, Mick Ratman, James Parker, Gina Vreeland, Miguel Tapia, Robin McDonald, and JP O'Connor, all of whom carved time out of their busy working schedules to interview our nominated colleagues. And of course, a massive thanks to Erica Howard, our Communications and Operations Director, for her tireless behind-the-scenes support. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting the talented professionals who build worlds one location at a time. We look forward to seeing you on the red carpet at the 13th Annual LMGI Awards on August 22nd, 2026 in Santa Monica, California. Bye.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Gina Vreeland, and I'm the moderator for the LMGI. And today we're going to discuss the film Hamnet. I keep wanting to say Hamlet, but it's Hamnet. Okay, and today we are joined by Supervising Location Manager Lindsay Powell, Location Manager Santiago Placer, and Location Manager Reese Bitter. Lindsay has worked on projects such as The King's Speech, 1917, and The Avengers Endgame. Santiago Placer has worked on projects such as the series House of Dragons, the film Wonder Woman 1984, and The Batman, and also Fantastic Beasts from the Harry Potter world. Reese Bitter's credits include working on the TV series Young Sherlock, Willow, The Acolyte, Generation Z. And anyway, thank you for joining us today. So we're here today because you all worked on the movie Hamnet. And for those of you that haven't seen the movie yet, it's a story that takes place in the late 1600s, and it's about Agnes, a healer, who builds a life with William Shakespeare when he was just a local tutor and an aspiring playwright. And it goes through their life together where they share the joys and they share the grief. And there's also distance between them, given him being an aspiring playwright. Thank you so much for joining us. Right from the beginning, it takes you through the woods and you see Agnes. And that image in the woods, it tells the story about really who she is in one frame. Anyway, you guys did a beautiful job, but how long, I mean, tell me about that. And also, like, how long of a prep time did you have?
Thank you, Gina. It really was one of our key locations, I would say, that wood location. It was actually the first location that we found. Um, Reese and I took Chloe and Lukash, our DP, and Fiona Crombie, our production designer, to that location on the very first day that Chloe landed in the UK. Um, and actually, we had shared some images with that key creative group beforehand. And it was the one place that we really wanted to get to and scout for real and be involved and be in that location. Um, and we got there, and it was really quite a magical experience. I'm sure Reese will back me up on this. They got out of the car, and I remember watching Chloe get down on the ground and touching the soil. It has quite a special quality to it. It has a color that you can see on film, and it's the iron ore mix in the ground. And Chloe literally wanted to be in and surrounded by that. And we spent hours walking around that location and came across that hollow and that tree that represented our birthing area.
Yeah, I could see watching the movie that that tree played that area as a whole, that complete area played it was a character unto itself.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly that. And like you said, and I think that's a key point, we were very lucky on this project, that we had a director who felt so strongly that locations really were characters. They were extensions of the story, and it was very important for her, that these places were right and felt right.
which well, this location seemed to fall right in place naturally. And I love that when it happens. It's like
Yeah.
it's meant to be. But was there a location that you guys were looking for that was tougher to nail down, that was more of a challenge?
Um, yes, I think the split, like you said, we were very lucky, and it was. When you go in and you feel something is meant to be, um, and that is what happened. And actually, we were on a distant location there, and we then built our package around that almost, and our travel on location around those woods. Um, and we then went through a process of looking for the Shakespeare house, the Henley Street house, and also the family Hewlands, the farmhouse, in our story. Um, and we scouted the country, we scouted all over the UK looking for these properties. Um, and actually, the Henley Street house was a build in the end, which formed a lot of the houses that we scouted on location, helped inspire that. The exterior was on our street in Webley in Herefordshire. And I think then our farmhouse actually was a little bit trickier. Um, but after an extensive search, again, that I was scouting in an area for another property that was owned by the National Trust that they thought may be tricky because of a change of tenancy. And I saw a sign, and as we do as scouts, drove down a lane, got to the bottom of this lane, a mile-long lane, and there stood this farmhouse, which for us, it was quite amazing. It was actually empty. It was mid-renovation, and the National Trust had stopped work on the property. They'd put a new roof on and had halted all other works, and then started our negotiation process with them to be able to use that. But that one probably was our trickiest one to find, to be honest.
You know what's so funny about that story where you just go down this road? There's so many stories like that in the film industry for these scouts, for location managers and
Yeah.
scouts, where it's like you're stuck, and then all of a sudden somehow you let go and you just follow your nose and you find it.
Yeah, you're so right. And you know how we all try and package up these locations, and you're trying to make everything work, and really this amazing property around the corner came up, and I suppose in a way because I knew that property around the corner was there. You sort of go, it must be here, it must be here. And actually, the National Trust were incredible. I drove down this lane and I called them and said, please, you must find me a contact. And I actually stayed in Herefordshire. I went the next day and they were amazing. They then sort of entrusted us with the keys. I said, I must bring the designer back tomorrow. So I drove back to London, drove Fiona there the next day, and then they gave me the code so that we could get in. And there was a lot of back and forth. And then, yes, it became Santiago's home for a few months after that. But yes, and the rest is
What a life.
history, as they say. It was quite a life. He turned into, their resident farmer. But yeah, it really was quite the story.
Santiago, what was it like living in that house?
You know what? It was a very interesting location in the sense that it was a house that not only had these looks, but it had extremely challenging restrictions all over the place. It was a scheduled monument, which means there might be architectonic things that you couldn't dig out. There were incredibly precious crayon drawings on the walls, of which you could get not too close. You couldn't cover them. You couldn't. Everything was a little push and pull until we got there. But it was an incredible experience. We were there during the summer, so the weather was incredible. It was all very bucolic. The farmer that was the tenant in the land was incredibly friendly. I would go to see him every now and then, play with the dogs, walk around with the cows, except when they were trying to run me over. Um, but overall, it was just an unforgettable experience, an incredible property as well.
Wow. Reese, was there a location that you grew fond of?
I'm very fond of the woods. I think we all could appreciate getting a kick out of seeing other people's reactions to it. And like Lindsay alluded to, when we took Chloe there and Lukash and the and Fiona the designer, just seeing that on their faces and getting that reaction, because we go there a dozen times and we sort of get numb to it, and then seeing it again fresh. I really enjoyed the woods. But I did have a special I have a fondness for Webley, for our street, because we've all got our little tricks of how we win over residents and locals, and try and make them involved, part of it. And the people of Webley really took to us. They were sort of wary at first, because it was quite a big deal. We had to close the road for almost 3 weeks through their high street, and people's departure from their daily routine is what gets their backs up slightly. But the production were quite canny, really. They put up a casting call for the essays. So half the essays, or most of the essays in Webley, were from Webley. This is the street set. So yeah, I mean, it's a special thanks to them, really, to lending us their street for the best part of a month.
Wow. That could be really tricky when you're out on location and it's a location that you're using for weeks. you know. So kudos to you for managing that and keeping it ongoing, because I know how difficult it can be, to keep everybody happy and to balance the needs of the locals and the needs of production.
There's a special mention for one of our assistant location managers, Matt, who lived in Webley and set up camp in the Green Bean Cafe,
Oh,
which is a boat hole of ours. And he knew the name of everyone in Webley by the end, and he was a real asset in that shoot.
yeah. Well, kudos. It takes a lot to be the man on the ground or woman on the ground. It takes a lot.
The
so
Green Bean Cafe. I think we must have bought all their sandwiches 3 times in there. Like, what a place that was. Imagine arriving with 50 people on a recce, say, what do you have food-wise? We'll take everything.
Yeah, they are
well,
very, very, very special. That place holds a very special place in all of our hearts. And actually, yeah, they helped us out. As Yago said, that was an overrun of a recce. And we got to know them so well that we called in advance and they said they'd stay open. And yeah, they fed a whole recce crew whilst we were hours overrunning. So we were very appreciative. And if you see any of our other interviews, a lot of crew members have mentioned that. So it's really, like you were saying, it's so special when you create that relationship on location, but it isn't just for a location department, it spanned every department on the shoot. And it really fills me with such joy that all of the crew had such a special time in Webley.
yeah. Well, and this goes, often I say it takes a village to make a movie or a TV show.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of it literally taking a village to make that film. And I've seen that film, and I'm sure a lot of people in that village have as well. And I could tell you it was all worth it.
Yeah.
You do those locations proud. And now they could proudly say, oh, we help. They have their own stories and legends now about you and that location team on Hamnet.
Yeah, we are very, like we said, Aniaga, we are so very grateful because we really did have that support. Um, and we had, like we've all experienced, we set up our first residence meeting not knowing if one person would turn up or if 100 would turn up, and that hall was full. It was fuller than full. And there was a lot of people that were curious to see what we were going to do. And it's been quite incredible. I still get messages now, and I consider those residents their friends. They weren't just residents at a location where we went to, and I love that we have those relationships. And like we said, Matt was going to yoga classes weekly. He was absolutely incredible. There wasn't a stone unturned in that village. And I love getting the updates that we get. And I do hope, like you said, that they also feel so very proud because they played a huge part for us.
Yeah, so I wish we could talk more because obviously there's a lot that went into this, but we're running out of time. Is there anybody you would like to thank before we end the call? And also, will you guys be going to the awards show? Any?
I wish I could say I could. Gina, I've just had a newborn, so my logistics of wondering whether I can get there or not, who knows? Maybe it'll be their first trip. But, that would be fun. I think we should probably say thank you very much to Herefordshire Council and the Herefordshire County BID as well, which is the business development team, and Creative England. They have reworked their filming structure and licenses and actually set up a wider office since we've been there. Rachel was absolutely incredible, and Diane, the support that they gave us from the moment that I contacted them. And they didn't have a sort of strict filming process, but that didn't stop them. It didn't deter them. They wanted to support us, and they really did pull in all of the departments with the council to make Webley work. You will agree with me. There's a lot of people in the national trusts at the farmhouse where, yeah, really deserve our thanks as well. They really did support us.
Definitely, without them, I don't know what I would have done in Kumau Farmhouse. They were
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, we really we learned so much. They went above and beyond. A story that probably hasn't been spoken about and why we really should thank them. They actually ran farming workshops for us as well. They did everything. And again, they were never put off by our moments. They saw me turn up. I was probably there twice a week for a month before we did the official introductions, because it all had to go through the National Trust, and they lived on a neighboring part of the property. And they just waved and smiled every time. There was a recce where one of our drivers went to see them because we needed some hot water, and never did they question anything. And they were so incredibly welcoming. So, yeah, we're very grateful to all of our support.
Well, we're going to have to conclude this, but again, I want to thank you guys for creating such a great film and being part of a great project, and also meeting us today and discussing that. So anyway, thank you so much. And hopefully our paths cross again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Gina.
Bye.
Welcome, congratulations, Matthew and Ross, for making the top 5 for Marty Supreme in this year's LMGI awards. We talked recently with our other video session, but just a few questions about the locations on the film. When you guys read the script, any locations that immediately stood out as creative challenges? And how did that evolve over prep?
Well, I'll throw it back to Ross, because the shoe store and his neighborhood and all the characters resided in that neighborhood that Ross really wrangled in the Lower East Side. I think when I read it, that was there was something that was cut out that actually made me a little nervous. Right, Ross? I don't know if you remember the subway piece.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to jump across the tracks. So I remember when I read that, I was like, okay, we're not doing that. But maybe there's a world where there's a dead, track or something like that. But I think it was the Lower East Side, and then the big component was the international locations that we were cheating in New York City, and those were anywhere from Paris streets to just the venues that they were at. And that was just the stuff where it's like we've all done that stuff before, but we knew they were special moments in the film, so those were challenging. I think, Ross can attest to this too, like doing period, as much as it's done in New York, you get to sort of, it's not the usual suspects, but there's only so many places that we can make work for these sort of things. But no, I mean, when I was reading it, it was the Lower East Side was a really, really big challenging thing. That was going to be how we got to find the right store, we got to find the right street, and pull it all together.
In the film, those areas are very tight knit, like it's part of a community with a store and the street outside. In reality, were those all connected? Did you find those as anchor locations, or?
Yeah, well, the thing about the Lower East Side was what was good was that the producers gave us enough time to really get dug in down there, and truthfully, when I was given that area to wrangle, I kind of, since I know it so well, I kind of knew right where to go, and I had known of a spot that had been there and hadn't changed since like 1940, which we ended up using. I'd known a place, like it was right in my mind the minute I read it. And so they gave me like a good month ahead of time to just be down there and really get to know everybody on those streets. And so when it came time for us to shoot down there, we had a section that sort of, we were friendly with everybody. It had the bones. We knew we could dress it. Everybody from the production design to the art team was sort of on board with what we could do, and we were able to put it into effect. So it looked scary in the beginning, but once we found our little niche, it was kind of not, I won't call it easy, but like it was easier to do than it looked. Let's put it that way.
Tell me a bit about the London location. I guess I was quite naive when I was watching it. I was reading this was shot at the Ritz-Carlton. How, or was it taking place at the Ritz-Carlton in London, but it was shot at the Plaza Hotel? Is that correct?
Yeah, the Palm Terrace. It's just, I mean, we looked at file pictures, and that's another thing, Josh and his wife had this pretty insane, you know, gigantic database of pictures. And sometimes those pictures are sort of hard to translate because it might just be some celebrity's face from back then. But we were able to get enough that when, the Plaza Hotel can be expensive and difficult, challenging with schedule wise, but basically we walked in there hoping to just show them a little corridor, a little corner of a room, and they ended up sort of seeing the Palm Terrace, and it's still to this day it's still very, very period. There wasn't much that we had to do. I mean, I don't want to say that we didn't have to do much. We had to do a lot, and art department had to change out tables and things like that. But like the bones and the surfaces are like, that it's sort of easy. It's amazing production value.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the scenes with the bowling alley and the gas station, if those are connected, where those are, and how that sort of evolved, outside of the city, with your scouting and design.
Ross, you want to?
Well, I believe the name of the area was Florida, New York. And it was hard to forget that it was Florida, New York. But yeah, we found this like strip there for the gas station situation that we were able to take this kind of dilapidated, beat up building and turn it into a gas station. And we certainly had to do a ton of work to secure that area and work with the farmers and work with the neighbors and work with the local, police and fire and all that to be able to do our shoot there. So that was kind of special, and we were looking a lot upstate in order to find that area. That took some time, I believe, and managing it was not easy. And then I think Matt, you could speak more about the bowling alley, right? Bowling alley was interesting too.
Yeah, so it was the bowling alley was quite a long search because, and I think since the movie's come out, I've had a handful of managers. I don't know about you, Ross, handful of reach out and say, how did you guys get, a period bowling alley? Just because there's so many of them that they've added the lowered ceilings, they've changed out, they put the monitors up, so much of it um, has changed, and we were lucky enough to uh, to find this place. And they didn't have lowered ceilings; they had a nice curve. They had projectors, like the old school classroom projectors. That's how they kept their scores. And the guy, again, we've essentially found the right place. It was out of the zone. I think it was Fox Bowling Alley was it Hancock, New York? And but I guess that was another one that I remember reading it, and I was like, oh, that's going to be a pain in the ass. And then the hope was to find one of these smaller ones that's period that only has 4 6 lanes, but they were very, very specific for that scene that they wanted, what the other characters playing bowling. He keeps on looking back over at where the ping pong tables are set up. And that was such an important piece that none of the smaller ones we were ever going to be able to do that. We found some other ones that just had some environmental issues, and we were never going to be able to get in there and clean them up. Um, but that was a really hard find, and they just kept on expanding the bubble. Or else I think you were in that photo review. They were talking about like there was one in Massachusetts. We had a scout who was like, "Well, I know of one a few states over," and it's like, wait a minute, we do try to keep things somewhat centered in the New York region. Um, but yeah, it's just like it was far, but it's out of everything that we looked for, and after, since it's been released and having people come up to me be like, "Hey, what else did you guys find?" And I was like, "Nothing." I was like, that was really one of the few places that had so many of the original details, or at least enough details where, all we had to do was move a few vending machines and an arcade. Not to discount what art department did. They went in there and they really, really made it what it was. But that was a challenging one as well.
For sure.
Any other than that, are there any sort of foreseen challenge that either one of you guys had on the shoot that just became overly challenging and was not expected?
Well, I got one story that was kind of interesting. When we shot the last scene with the babies, we were looking for a space. We took forever to find. We had a hospital, and then it didn't work out, and like there was so much going on trying to find that space. And we found a place upstate. It was like a convent or something. And our team went up there, and they had to do all this work to it and paint it and this and that. And in the end, I had to like last minute make sure that I could get it cleared for the babies because of the paint and of the old nature of the building and so on and so forth. And I had to pull some favors, let's just say, in order to get the right paperwork to support what had been done there so that it could get cleared for a bunch of babies to get in there. So that was a little bit of a nail biter, but pulled it off last minute. But that was definitely a challenge, right? And we looked forever, Matt, for that location too.
Yeah, that's one of those, every location manager has it, where you show them something sort of early on and you're like, hey, this is probably the place, but it doesn't spark, it doesn't give them the spark that they want. And then you take them on a world tour, and then you end up back at that place that it's like,
You end up at
yeah,
square
that's
one.
why this place makes sense. And I mean, there were a few like that, because again, it's the period nature of it is like, they're not making any more of these places, so you get down to it, and I'm sure there's dozens of places that haven't been discovered yet, or they're behind, drywall or something like that, and at some point their glory will be revealed. But we definitely put a lot of places up front, and then we sort of found our way back to them, as we were getting closer to the shoot. But challenging wise, I think it's, Ross, I would assume you'd agree, it's time and money. There's you could always use more time, and you can always use more money when you're making something like this. The people that Ross and I had on the team were all awesome, from the scouts to the ALMs to the assistants and to even to the unit PAs. I mean, this was a really tough show, and we couldn't have done it without them.
Well, again, congratulations on making the top 5. Great film. You guys did a great job, and thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Mick Rapman. I'm a location manager and international and UK location consultant, and member of the LMGI and the UK EA, which is the UK, United Kingdom, Europe and Africa subcommittee. So this is the finalists for the location awards, and I would like to introduce Richard Hill and Joe Beckett from Peaky Blinders, The Immortal Man, which was quite a fantastic number, seeing it had been transferred from a successful series into a feature, and actually worked, which is new. So let's get on with the interview. Welcome, both of you. This is obviously about the fantastic film, The Immortal Man. Would you both like to say a bit about how you got into the industry, and tell us a bit more about yourselves, but keep it fairly brief, as we want to talk about the film as well. Whoever wants to start, Richard.
Okay, I'll kick us off. So I was the supervising location manager on The Immortal Man. I started in the industry. I actually did an English degree in London, and thought at that time that working in the film industry sounded really exciting and fun. Had absolutely zero contacts. So in those days, wrote off lots of letters trying to get work experience with pretty minimal response, but ended up doing some work experience at was the London Film Commission, and is now Film London. And that work experience ultimately turned into a full-time job when I left uni. And there I met location managers. They would come in. They would obviously looking for support from the commission, and got talking to them, being enthusiastic and as keen as I could be. And one of them very kindly offered me to go out scouting for him. So with fairly minimal experience with cameras. I jumped at the chance, went out and found myself in the middle of the Thamesmead estate, which is quite an imposing estate in on the outskirts of London, where part of A Clockwork Orange was shot, and there was me very eagerly knocking on doors trying to get into people's houses. But that's sort of how I started, and that contact then led to a job as a runner for him on a BBC period drama, and I went from there. Just started at the bottom of the location department and kept going.
Fantastic. Joe?
So I again did work experience. I did work experience. I studied at Ripon and York St John College in York, doing a film, TV, and drama degree. We had to find a placement between our second and third year, and I was lucky enough to get some work at Pinewood with a post-production supervisor, and sort of met someone in the tea room that was doing a film on the other side of the studio that needed a runner for a couple of weeks. And I ended up staying for the whole summer, went back, finished my degree, kept in contact with those people in each holiday, and then ended up getting a job as a runner back at Pinewood. So I went up through the sort of like production rank of sort of being a runner for quite a number of years, and then sort of just started talking to a location manager who said, come and have a go at locations. Again, like Rich, sort of like a bit kind of green as to what that was at the time, but kind of was taken out on several kind of location shoots, and then went and tagged along and sort of made my way up through that, doing sort of films and TV and sort of assisting, and then eventually moving up to location manager.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the movie, the pre-production. So whoever wants to do this, when you first got the script, what did you think, and did you think about where you could shoot it?
I mean, we both Joe, we sort of started together pretty much on the job. The show had been at a stage of pre-production, I think the year before, and there'd been a certain amount of work that had been done, but with a different location team, different designer. So when we came on, there was a body of work, but we had a new designer, and actually at that point we did a complete kind of about turn on what had been looked at before, and we started from scratch. So it was a lot of driving around. The producer Guy Healy sort of described it to me when we started as it's a period road movie, So we were covering a lot of ground, and eventually, we ended up having locations from sort of between Oxford and up to the Lake District, so almost the kind of length of the country. So at the start, yeah, it was I suppose for such an established show, obviously very aware of kind of how popular a show it is, and kind of everything that had gone before, trying to find something that was in character with all the previous work, but the ambition was really to try and make this as it was a standalone feature, to make this as cinematic and graphic, and trying to kind of up the scale wherever we could. So that was the ambition, and that was the challenge, and we did a lot of scouting.
And
we did, and it was nice to kind of have that sort of freedom that you don't always get on some productions, where it was just you can look anywhere, sort of go and find it. And obviously it becomes a bit more realistic about how geographically you make that work from a production perspective. But it was nice to be able to kind of from a starting point kind of look the length and the breadth of the country for some of these things, and find some locations that were sort of like new and exciting, that perhaps hadn't been featured before, for whatever reason.
yeah, it's actually great to actually be creative, isn't it? Or given the opportunity to be creative with the locations. Any specific location that was really difficult to get or real fun?
I think one
Give you
that
both.
yeah, one that stands out probably for both of us, I would say is Calder Abbey, which is up on the kind of outskirts of the Lake District. We were the original. It was kind. It's a sort of a key location in the film. This is sort of Tommy's kind of house that he's become a recluse in, and Jacqueline, the designer, was really keen that the house had, huge amounts of atmosphere and should be almost sort of representative of his psychological state of mind. So, and there was this sort of recurrent theme of kind of the supernatural or something sort of ghostly about it. So we were sort of looking. She was very keen for us to find a house that had some element of ruins attached to it, that could be, a kind of either castle or religious ruins, but then a house that was period and believably could also be lived in. So, I mean, that was a search that was kind of one of our first sort of major things to look for, and we looked at, I mean, I'd say, hundreds of different houses, and we certainly had a short list of about 50 that we were then going out and scouting, and we found Calder through, just lots and lots of research. And I think we had a couple of sort of shots of the outside. No, it's not with the National Trust. It wasn't an established filming location. So that was a real, a bit of investigative kind of scouting that ultimately I think really paid off, because it is, it's a really stunning location, and it's quite rare, I think, to find houses like that haven't been shot before, and it hadn't had a show in there. So that was a big one for me.
Yeah, I thought that was a brilliant location. Helped tell the character straight away.
Thank you.
Joe, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say I agree with Rich, and actually sort of finding, once we'd found that exterior, it was then finding the right interior, to match that, which again was a challenge in itself. Finding, the right interiors that again told, the character of Tommy Shelby, and just kind of like how he was living, and kind of his relationship to the land as well outside. And yeah, so I think, yeah, for me too, both of those, both finding the exterior and then the challenge of finding, the correct interior, which again, the interior of Cork Abbey hadn't been seen like that on screen before either. So, as a package for an interior and exterior that was split over two locations, I think it came across like it was one. So that was a big achievement.
Fantastic. Tell me about the canal docks scene with the tugboat or whatever, the longboat, the arrowboat.
I mean, that was the challenge of the kind of the waterways in general. There was this journey of the canal boats that we started kind of in Ellesmere Port at the National Waterways, and then we sort of picked them up. We used bits, sort of a bit in Birmingham and around Dudley as well, and then eventually we sort of came out in Goole, and that's where the kind of big explosion was. So that was it's an operational port. We built a bit of fascia of warehouse that we were matching to. We shot the interior in St Helens at the old Pilkington glass factory. So we built a sort of section of that exterior on the dock in Goole, and then we had this night filming the canal boats and that explosion for real, which was quite a big undertaking. Goole is the actual port isn't miles away from anything. There are houses nearby, so we had to do a lot of mitigation in terms of noise pollution and a lot of liaison with residents, and the actual ABP, the port company, were really supportive. We had a huge wall of hay bales that we brought in behind the set to try and soften that explosion. So it was a lot of work, and it was piecing. It felt like Joe, if you agree on this job, that there were lots of pieces of the jigsaw, and so with that journey, we'd almost do beats, of the canal boats leading up to this final big explosion. But they were, again, all across the country, these beats, and it was sort of finding finding where we could do them, bits that were period that fitted the story, and one bit in particular that Joe was quite keen was in Gas Street Basin in Birmingham, which is kind of in the centre of Birmingham, and yet we use this sort of quite small corner of the canal system to create quite an atmospheric sort of nighttime piece of that canal journey.
Yeah, I know that area,
Yeah.
that place. And Joe, tell us about it. How much fun was it, or
Yeah.
difficult?
Yeah, it was fun actually. But we kind of, like Rich said, it was kind of part of forming that journey. So we had to, as they kind of went through, a bit of tunnel, we had to kind of extend that so that we were like blacking out, making a massive rig going across the canal. We kind of, there are residents again that live there on some of those canal boats. There's hotels, there's pubs, but I have to say, like, the council and the waterways, the Canal River Trust, all very supportive of what we were doing. And it came down to sort of planning and liaising and doing the usual due diligence to make sure that you're making sure everyone's informed and on board. And hopefully we had people come and see what we were up to, and the logistics of getting those camera boats on and everything in that very sort of tight area, and getting the moorings and all of that. And because it is a busy area with a lot of footfall. So it was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Did you have any problems with the public or organizations anywhere? Or was it all really good plain sailing and lots of good memories for people?
I think there's always challenges,
Yeah.
in everything. Yeah, Joe, sorry, go on. What were you going to say?
No, I was just saying that, the logistics of the show being kind of so spread out, sometimes there was a bit of challenge of like having enough time in one place, with the preparation. But I think with the team that we had, we did due diligence to ensure that, we applied the right amount of time for consultations in those areas. And I think in general, I kind of felt like everyone was kind of supportive of where we were. Like Rich says, there's always going to be someone somewhere that for whatever reason, can't get past or has a grumble that day, or but I think in terms of us actually, doing a consultation, I think we sort of like covered ourselves on that and had a positive experience.
Yeah, I think it helps. It's such a popular show. The fact that it's well known, that it has a very strong fan base. That it has been a presence in some of those cities already, and people are kind of a keen a keen to that people were excited. Often we found people were excited about the project and what we were doing. That doesn't mean it wasn't easy, because there was there's night filming, there's pyrotechnics, there's atmospheric smoke, snow effects, which, can be quite a challenge in certain areas, particularly, if they're protected. So there was all of those sorts of challenges. But I think, there was a lot of support, it felt, from, all the agencies that we dealt with, but then, from the general public as well. And actually with Ghoul in particular, I remember, there was a gentleman that turned up in full Peaky Blinders outfit, costume, and that happened a few times, on our travels. You would see people that they absolutely kind of live the show.
It sounds fantastic. And congratulations. I think it was a really great job you did, and I really liked the film.
Thanks.
We're nearly out of time. Anything you want to add at the end?
I think the only thing, just in sort of further to kind of what we said at the start, I suppose, is that although, with the ambition of the project and, trying to make it as cinematic as possible, I felt personally, I think Joe feels the same. We did cover a lot of new ground, even though it's such an established project. So, out of, I think we had sort of 30 odd film locations. I think it was only two of those had actually been seen before in the show. So, that's personally something that I'm quite proud of, that we were able to hopefully feature some new locations. And, we ended up doing, I think more filming in Birmingham for the show than has been done before. And that was, that was, something that I'm quite proud of as well. And, obviously with the sort of new locations that hadn't been shot before, it was, that was a great experience. And I think, I found, with Joe as well, we had a really strong team. And, and it was a really, it was a great project to work on.
Fantastic. Joe, any last words?
Yeah, I think echo what Rich says actually, and also I think the positive experiences we brought to those locations that have never been shot before, they've come away with a positive attitude towards filming, which hopefully opens it up for other productions, which also is something to be proud of when you're covering so much ground, and you can walk away and feel like you can sort of like open it up for other productions. So that was also quite nice, because there was a couple where they hadn't been shot before, and you have to coax them through that, and whole bit of hand holding and reassurance. And again, I think with the time and experience and everything that we brought to the show, I think that was a benefiting factor to them wanting to do more filming. So I think that's a positive.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's what the job is about, as well as the creativity. It's actually talking to people and convincing people that we're not a bunch of crooks.
Exactly.
Some of the time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And
Thanks, Nick.
all the best for the awards.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mick Ratman. I'm a location manager and a international consultant, location consultant. I've been in the business for years. I'm a member of the LMGI and the UK EA, which is United Kingdom, Europe and Africa Committee. I'd like to introduce Isabella Guna for The Secret Agent, which was a fantastic Brazilian film set in the 70s, which came out for the Oscars and is in the running for this film this year. Hola, Isabella. Great to see you. And it's going to be great to hear about The Secret Agent. You can tell us all the secrets of The Secret Agent. So tell a little about yourself, first of all, how you got into the filming.
Okay. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here too. And I'm going to tell a little about my experience in the film. I started the scouting with another person, me and Mariana. We did it for 4 months. We did the research for about 4 or 5 months, and we had about 45 locations. So it was a big number.
Yeah.
to film, and it was a good experience, because we understood that Kleber would like to show Recife as a character, and we had discovered our own city, because we need to find locations, to find places in the 70s, and it was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So many places don't exist anymore. It was
Recife. Sorry?
so it was a big challenge to find these places
Yeah.
because Recife, the economic center of the city was in the downtown. But as the city expanded, the money, the economic center expanded too. So the downtown is what is covered by decades of neglect
Yeah.
because we don't have money anymore in the downtown.
I think it really looks fantastic, and it must have, when you first got the brief about the film script and you had to work out where we were going to do this, did Recife come in as first idea?
I'm sorry.
Was the first idea to shoot it in Recife
The
in the
first idea
film?
to shoot in Recife, we started looking in the downtown, and the script it used to the first place, I believe, the workplace of Marcelo.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big challenge because we have a lot of pages in the script over there,
Yeah.
and we filmed over the about 90 days. So it was the location that we spent more time.
So did was it difficult to talk to the council, to the cooperative, the council,
The
the city?
council,
Yeah.
no, we have support. We have
But,
support from the council.
and the police and everybody?
The police also, and the government, and the mayor and the government of the state supported. They gave us support because they understood that it was nice to the our history, our culture.
Yeah. Did they want parts in it? Did they want to play extras in the film? The mayor and the
Um,
chief police.
what kind of if they could do that. We have a good chief for police in the movie
Yeah.
film.
Everybody wants to be a star.
Yes, everybody wants to be a star.
And what was the most difficult thing to find?
The most difficult. Mm, it's like find the atmosphere, the real atmosphere, because we have a city hidden, um, and we have a little messy here. So some of the buildings are beautiful and well preserved, but some of textures has been modified. Um, sometimes, sometimes, yes, yes, I'm so sorry, I lost my mind here. But I believe, yeah, the let me think.
Okay.
Uh,
Doesn't matter. We can cut and come back. So, you okay?
okay, you can cut. Oh,
Okay. We'll give it five. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now.
okay.
So the buildings or the locations that I thought really stood out was the house where he was hiding, living with everybody else, and um, the office and the barber shop.
So the building, Yeah, the barber shop. I really like this sequence of the chess because
Yeah,
it was one of the most difficult
yeah,
sequence and group of sequence for us because it was a combination of multiple locations. The chess starts in the street, and after that they went into a building, and after that they went to a square and another street, and and after that they come back to the barber shop, to the building where the barber shop is.
it's an
And
arcade, yes. And that,
is it okay? Yeah. Uh,
so was it
and
was it sorry, was it
sorry.
empty?
No, it wasn't empty. Everything was working, and we had to take the persons out and did a big work. We did a big
Yeah,
work over there. But the curiosity is the barber shop is a hair salon. So
oh,
so
not too
we
much
changed
to
it.
change.
Yeah, not too much to change. But the building where the barber shop is a beautiful building from the 50s.
Yeah,
It's called Teresa Cristina, and this building is hidden from most of the people. Nobody noticed this place because despite it's well preserved, but it is on in a place that has a little messy over there. A lot of a lot of people, um, a lot of things happen over
yeah.
there.
So tell me, after the Oscars, did the people in the town come back to you and say they were really happy and all?
Yes, everybody was very happy here when the Oscar when we were nominated on the Oscar. The São Luís, the cinema São Luís, is a character in the movie, as you know, and the government put a red carpet on the street, a big red carpet, and it was a big party. So
Brilliant.
all the people was over there, and a big carnival. They did a
Oh,
big carnival over there with
yeah.
big Muppets from the character with the characters
Oh,
with
wow.
yes with Wagner Moura, a big Muppet, big and Kleber Mendonça, and the director, every Dona Sebastiana also
Hmm.
a big carnival here.
Oh, fantastic. Shows the city is ready for more filming if possible. You
Yes,
understand, Confront? It
on
shows
the
that
cities. I'm sorry,
it
could you
show
repeat?
it shows that the city now will be even more friendly for filming.
Ah, yes, of course. And when we were now after the Oscar, of course, and the people when we were shot, when we were filming the Secret Agent, the downtown become a big set, and people love it to see the vintage cars on the streets and the the characters on the streets with the outfits. It was funny.
Brilliant. So, is there anything else you want to say about the filming in the film
So there is some about the filming in the film.
and the crew?
Um,
Were they well behaved?
where they well behaved. We have a crew from the location crew.
Yeah.
We were here in Recife. We did the scout in two. We were a small crew. We did the scout in two here, and we have scenes in São Paulo and scenes in Brasilia. And over there we had one person in each city.
Yeah. No, great. I think that's it today, but fantastic, and the best of luck with the awards.
Welcome everyone. My name is Gina Vreeland. I'm the moderator on behalf of the LMGI. Today we're going to be discussing the film Train Dreams. We are joined by Peter Moroz and Phil Andrade, who worked on this film as assistant location managers. Pete has been in the film industry for 20 years. Phil has been in the business for 15 years. And they both have a history of working together on multiple projects, such as Dreaming Wild and the TV series Z Nation, and more recently, Train Dreams, which we're here to discuss today. Thank you for joining us. The story takes place in the early 20th century and follows a life of a logger named Robert. It was filmed across the beautiful state of Washington. I'm going to tell you, as a moviegoer, this was my favorite movie last year. I'm really happy to be doing this interview with you guys. The reason why I liked it is, you have the narrator. And of course, you have the characters discussing, talking, the dialogue. But what was equally communicating to the audience, at least to me, was the visuals, the cinematography. The locations were telling the story as well. And it was showcased in a way where if you turned off the audio, you understood the story and you could feel the emotions, which I did. And by the end of the movie, I had all these seemingly opposite feelings, but yet came to a place where I felt comforted. And then when you look at the story as a whole, that's really what it's about. It's about the big and the small and the light and the dark, and somehow it all turns into this beautiful rock in the universe, So I really like that underlying message, in the whole movie. Now it looks like it was filmed 100% on location, but I'm not sure that it was. Was it?
Yeah, I was pretty much. Yeah, I was trying to think, was there anything in a stage? The only thing, believe it or not, it was on a stage, which I was not part of, that was done on the west side, was this special effects used for when, can't remember the wife's name, but when she was running away from the fire and there was a lot of fire, that was done on what they call a volume stage with a lot of CGI screens or it's a lot of special effects visual. But that's, I think, the only bit that was probably done and truly on a stage, because we were out on location the whole time.
Yeah, the movie was stunning. You could just see it. You're just immersed with nature throughout the whole movie. Well, how long did it take you? How much prep time did you guys have leading up to the first camera rolling?
Well, actually, I personally started on it in the summer of 23. We filmed this from somewhere in March, end of March to early or late May, early June of 24. But I started scouting in the summer of 23 because it was actually supposed to film end of summer 23 to somewhere in the fall, but it basically got scuttled by the strikes and it went away. but then they brought it back, and so we started prepping in February again. They came back, and we started scouting again, and then we were, I think, getting going early April, end of March, and so we prepped for a few weeks during that second time around before we got the cameras rolling. They did a couple of the snow scenes and all that. That was like kind of the day before or during a day before the week where we really started most of the principal filming.
Okay. Were there any locations that were your favorite?
Well, I kind of enjoyed the West Side we went to the West Side Estate in Snoqualmie and North Bend, Washington, and that's where the train traveling scenes, because they actually have a train, older style train that goes back and forth for about 5 miles, and so they can use that to film all those interior and train riding scenes. It's quite lush and beautiful over there. That's where the big tree scenes, the guy climbing the tree, and some of the other scenes were done, or that little camp that was in the woods where the guy comes along and shoots the other guy there. And so that's a beautiful area. But actually, to be honest, I mean, I scouted a lot of the locations, but I was not on set during filming because I was in the office trying to get prepped for the next run.
Understood.
So Phil was more out on location every day.
Yeah, Phil, tell me which locations were your favorite and why.
I think the Medaling Falls, the bridge that they're actually on, where the cart's going, and there's he pushes them off the bridge and all that. That was on a guy's property up there. What was his name, Pete?
Mark.
Mark. Yeah, but we were up there. That was cool. It was a couple hours, right, or an hour and a half north of where we were home based at anyway. So it was we're all in different Airbnbs and everything. We're a couple hours north. But that was like just like the massive old bridge, and that's all, real.
The trestle. Yeah,
the trestle. That was just aesthetically pleasing for everybody, and it was just cool to look out and see everybody in like the overalls and all the extras, you know what I mean, and everything that we were doing up there. And then of course the cabin scene, anytime you see them in the cabin, which was done by production, is they built that cabin, on the side of the lake. That was cool because I mean we were at the cabin a lot. We were at the cabin. I think we started at the cabin.
Yeah.
Then we left. Then we went back to the cabin. Then we left. Then we're back at the cabin. You know what I mean? You know how it goes scheduling wise. And so that's one that stuck in my head a lot, just how they put that together and how it just sort of became a part of like us and the earth and the whole vibe,
Yeah.
If I can, if I can make one note about what you talked about, the trestle, the bridge that's up in an area called Medaling Falls. It also happens to be where Kevin Costner filmed The Postman back in the, I think, earlier 90s or mid 90s. And they a little further down from where we were there. It's a river and there's a whole big dam. Anyway, they built a whole town there, but that's that same area. It's a gorgeous area, as you could tell by the filming. But with that, I know one of the things you were wondering about is challenging locations to find. There were a couple, but that trestle scenario just came upon us. Somebody mentioned, there's somebody way up there who has property that has a trestle and a railroad track that's not being used. It's a dead track, which is unusual. You find a lot of that around.
Yeah.
Because to try to film on a live track would be pretty silly. Yeah. So because the whole point was we were to the point of just finding a ledge that they could build a little mock-up of what looks like the beginning of a trestle, and we were kind of a little deep into scouting that. And then somebody told us about this fella that has this, and I went up there and scouted, took photos, and it was like, praise be, it was this huge gift to us for that. And so that worked out real. It was a lot. It was a bit logistically difficult just because it was so far away. The art department had to make multiple trips to get done what they needed to up there. And that also was scheduled on a day that we were the crew had to travel at the end of a day in the dark from a town called Tico, which is the furthest south from where we were. That's where the the theater scene was, and the general store scene was, and a couple other things, where he's working, the bucking bales or whatnot. They traveled from there. It took probably about 3 hours to get up there, and got up there in the middle of the night and just started the next day. So anyway, those are some of the logistically challenging scenarios.
And I like Tico too. It's like a cool little small town south of Spokane, little small country town, and they have the cool theater, that Empire Theater. That's like there, they do plays and stuff in it. So I just thought that was fun. You know what I mean? That was fun for all of us to be down there in that small little town with this cool theater,
Wow. So, is there anybody that you want to thank for helping you, solve any problems or challenges? Because I'm sure you came across many,
Oh
given
yeah,
100% on location.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I'm sure, I'm trying to think that back in my memory after 2 years or so, but there was, well, the folks in Tico, they really welcomed us. Of course, that doesn't happen in their little town very much, to have what they would think is Hollywood coming to their town and doing that. The theater manager was very helpful in that spot. For the west side, where we were with the train and all that, there's a fellow in our, Dave Drummond, who was very helpful, just kind of connecting us with some, because that's his world. He works on that side, and he was very very elemental in getting us in touch with the various people that we need to on that side. There's a gentleman from up north where we filmed a lot of the logging scenes in an area called Chewelah, which is about an hour north of Spokane. And there's a fellow that goes by the name of Jungle Cat, believe it or not, who is very, everybody knows him in that area. It's a small town again, and he's quite an interesting character. But he has a logging company, so and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he fell some of those trees that you saw coming down in the footage, in the filming, and he's pretty accurate when he to drop a tree in just a given spot that you want him to. But he was also very important in finding certain locations up there, the forests and all that.
Cool. Phil, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we end this call?
I think Mark at Medellin Falls, and then also somebody where we didn't shoot, but it was lunch, was Diane from the Mystique Casino Hotel. She was really cool in helping us just get some lunch relief in a hotel, because we're out in the brush and the trees and the ticks and the elements,
Well,
when we were
I'm sorry, that was base camp, right? And
yeah, base
you
camp.
set that up pretty quickly. I mean, you got that. It was a kind of a
semi
last minute.
They send me out there and they're like, "Figure it out, kid." You know what I mean? Wow, the universe helped. You know what I'm saying? And Diane came through and she was like, "Yeah, we could do it." Boom, signed it. We made it. Truck started coming in as like the ink is wet on the page. You know how it goes. So she saved the day. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. It's such an honor to talk to you guys. Like I said, this really was my favorite movie from last year.
Nice.
So
Thank you.
anyway, and thanks for being a part of this.
Absolutely.
Thing. All right. To be continued.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.